And now we are so excited to be joined by Esosa Osa, who is the founder and CEO of Onyx Impact, a nonprofit organization founded to better understand how Black communities engage with information, fight harmful information ecosystems targeting Black voters. And this is going to be a very topical conversation. We talked earlier about RT, Russia Today, the Russian state-owned network that has been finally banned by Meta as part of this larger investigation out of the US government over the past few weeks of Russian intervention in this election. And we're going to talk specifically with Esosa today about how Russia has been targeting Black communities in the United States as well. So, Esosa, thank you so much for joining us on Closing Strong.
Thank you all so much for having me. Excited for the conversation.
Tell us about African Stream. What is it? How did you come to identify this account, this channel, and rehash for us kind of what came out this week about it and how the work you all have been doing for months and months and months contributed to the story?
Yes, absolutely. So, African Stream is an online platform that is across a wide range of different social media platforms that claims to be a Pan-African digital media organization focused on giving, voices to Africans generally. What it actually is a covert Russian government influence operation. We found out last Friday with the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken that African Stream is actually run by RT.
RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a Pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists.
And Onyx Impact came across African Stream very early on this year in our overall kind of foundational research into the online information ecosystem surrounding Black Americans. And one of the platforms that we came across was African Stream. And it did not seem to us to be what it claimed to be. When our researchers saw that both its leader and many of the journalists who had previously worked for state-sponsored media in Iran and in Russia and China, that made us pause. And in addition, despite saying that they were Africa focused or focused on Africans, they tended to move a lot of content that was about divisive Black issues in the US in particular. And they also were platforming other bad actors we were following that were actively spreading disinformation to Black communities. And so before you even got to the point where they're engaging in spreading a lot of disinformation, there are already several different warning signs and different flags for us that this account is not what it seemed to be. And so we labeled African Stream as a very likely foreign actor or foreign influence operation, and are obviously grateful to see that the State Department has really validated our work and shown and released that this actually is the case. This is another example of folks trying to divide the Black community to move Black folks farther away from the ballot box.
Can you talk a little bit about the content and how it was distributed in the US and the kind of reach you think it had? Pick an issue that they would have focused on, and then how would it manifest? What was it on? YouTube, Twitter? I mean, just give us a little bit of a description of how it actually operated.
So, and as we see across, I think, a lot of different similar accounts, African Stream still has platforms across almost every social media platform you can imagine. So they've got like 1 million followers on TikTok, 1 million on Instagram, 500,000-ish on YouTube, X, Telegram, LinkedIn, Rumble, Reddit, you name it, Patreon, all of these.
These are big numbers for folks who don't know.
Yeah, these are big. So they've got big followings, right? And I mean, even in my own social media community, I have friends that are retweeting or posting the videos from African Stream and have been for a while. And so it was not surprising to see them kind of grow that reach very quickly and push those divisive topics so successfully.
I was going to actually ask you, Esosa, to zoom out a little bit for us too. Why would Russia want to target Black communities?
You know, I think this is just another example of the immense power of the Black community and of the Black vote, right? There's a reason that folks are trying to move this community, our community, farther away from the ballot box, right? Because they know how much power and influence we can have on the outcome of elections. And so this is, as disinformation is continuing to become more and more of a problem, as the spread of disinformation becomes, hyperbolic in some cases, and the cost of spreading it approaches zero, while, sometimes we say the cost of spreading disinformation is approaching zero, while the cost of accessing truth is getting more and more expensive every day. When you look at what's happening across the ecosystem, and you look at these elections that are determined on the margins, and what is maybe the best way to change that, you're going to look at which communities are most powerful and most able to affect that change. And so, that is one of the reasons that we are seeing increasingly sophisticated disinformation campaigns targeting Black Americans. And, what's so interesting about it is that all of Onyx Impact's research shows that Black folks are not more susceptible to disinformation than other communities. And in fact, Black folks are likely less susceptible to disinformation than other communities, because we have an innate higher level of skepticism in a lot of different types of government operations. And so, that being the case, it is also still true that if disinformation is sophisticated and targeted towards a community, it can still have an impact. And that's what you're seeing happen today.
Looking back over the last few weeks with the very, very aggressive action from the US government, and looking back even further to actions like the arrest of the founder of Telegram in Europe, and there's been significant actions in Europe that, there's clearly stepped up US government and Western government engagement to try to restore a degree of information integrity to our collective discourse. But we've seen some very promising things happen. I think for me, when I look back, in addition to the jailing of the Telegram founder and sort of the exposing of Telegram's malevolence, and the fact that this guy had been going back and forth to Russia all the time, right? Sort of belying what was really happening there and the cover story that he had. I think the shutting down by Meta of RT is a really major moment in the evolution of this process, because RT may not have had enormous reach in this country, but man, does it have enormous reach in Latin America and in Spanish in particular, and other parts of the world. And, it operates in essence as an independent media organization in many countries. And now that we have labeled it in the US as an enabler or as integrated part of Russian intelligence, and for Meta to have now banned it from all of their platforms, right, all around the world, this was an incredible blow to the Russians that I'm sure that they are still stunned by. I mean, I don't think that in any, and particularly right before this election, and there were lots of other elections this year, can you reflect? I mean, as you do your work every day, when you have these aspirations, like there are things that I hope happen, just reflect a little bit back on what happened with Meta this week, because it seemed almost like, wow, that's really a big moment for us, right, in this whole thing. I just to get your thoughts on on what Meta did this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a monumental moment in this fight for truth and freedom in many ways. And I think that the actions by the State Department are to be commended. And I would hope that once that type of information came out, that Meta would take the actions that it did, and I'm very, very happy. And yes, while it is as you said, a significant blow to Russia, absolutely. And more importantly, this is just a major win for democracy, and for all of us who believe that every community deserves access to truthful, accurate information, and that can allow us to make our own informed opinions. This is the type of action that needs to be fundamentally taken. You all are experts. We all know that disinformation works in a very similar way, regardless of your background, your education, what have you. And that is that the more times you hear something, the more likely you are to believe it's true, and the more likely you are to believe other people believe it's true as well. And so, as I often say, if the president of the United States came out every day and said that the sky is green, we would all eventually start walking outside and being like, I'm not sure. And what that fundamentally means is that disinformation is a problem of amplification. It's a problem of repetition. And so when you can shut off such a major valve for that internationally, the compounding effects are so incredibly large. And so one of the things we're hoping for is to get folks more focused and aware that this is not just happening to certain audiences. This is happening in Black communities as well. Like, I'm not sure how many folks even know that African Stream had such a large impact in the U.S. Black online spaces that we were monitoring, but these are the types of actions that are needed.
I am curious, something else with disinformation and bad actors and, the work that you guys do at Onyx so deeply is like, you have to go everywhere. You have to find ways to navigate around and through algorithms to be able to identify bad actors or suspicious accounts and things of that nature. And it can feel like a really, really, really endless game of whack-a-mole. And I'm curious if that's changing with some of these bigger accounts that have been invested in with bigger corporations and adversaries, like through Russia Today, where this channel in particular was connected, or if it still feels like if it's an incredibly sort of decentralized network of these. That I'm curious how you guys approach that. How many more accounts like African Stream do you think that you will identify and need to sort of create notice for, or are they getting bigger and kind of easier to identify?
So that's an awesome question, and I think it has a couple of different layers to it. Yes, absolutely. Like, it is an immense amount of work to consistently be monitoring what this broader ecosystem looks like and who the actors at play are. And what we are seeing is, and what we try to focus on, are kind of the central hubs of who gets the information first, who's most likely to post it, when are they most likely to have the most reach. And what is still the case, and what I don't believe will continue to be the case, is that there are still those kind of central hub accounts, right, that are much more likely to be spreading this type of disinformation. There are so many accounts that are tied or following or what have you that are also engaged in similar operations. But what we try to do is focus on those central hubs. But again, as the cost of spreading disinformation approaches zero, we're going to get many more. We're seeing of those central hubs pop up. It's getting in many ways harder, especially with what AI is kind of doing to this entire field. So right now, I would not come close to calling it manageable, but what it is right now is we at least have a decent understanding of what that ecosystem looks like. But what that ecosystem will look like in 6 months to a year from now is anyone's guess.
I have to, because Esosa, I know how deeply you have worked in the state of Georgia. While we have you, I've got to ask, because Georgia has come on the map again in a big way for Democrats, one of the most competitive battlegrounds, just how you're feeling about Georgia. And obviously, Georgia will come down to Black folks showing up and voting to the degree that they can, because I know that there are some tough laws there. But so I'm sure that the disinformation is also playing a big role there, but would love just your take on Georgia, since it's very much back on the map with the Harris-Wallace ticket.
I think that's the number one thing, that it is very much back on the map with this change in the top of the ticket. And we're seeing, numbers come out. The AJC poll just recently came out showing the race is essentially tied in Georgia. And so once again, as you said, it's going to come down to communities of color, to the Black vote, to the AAPI vote, to the Spanish communities vote, the Hispanic communities vote, to all of these core groups, that we need to go and make sure that we're earning the vote of every single person, that we're treating every single voter like they are a persuadable voter and need to hear what our message is. But I think, working in Georgia politics all these years, I am filled with nothing but hope, and I operate from a sense of joy every day. Like, I've seen Black organizers in the South elect a Black senator, elect the first Jewish senator. I know it's possible. I've seen this change. And so I have nothing but faith in Georgia voters, and nothing but Black joy to share with all of you.
Absolutely. Black voters in Georgia, in my opinion, delivered us the Senate and the White House in 2020. So I welcome them to do it again for us in Georgia. We need you. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the incredible work that you're doing that no one else really was doing. I know that in this ecosystem, it's so important. I'm so grateful you stepped up to it. It's not easy work. It's not fun work, but it's so, so important. So thank you. And thanks for educating us a bit as well.
Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.